Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Fenty, and today I would like to present the result of a study that I conducted with my colleagues, Kenny and Silvani Kumara. The title of our study is The Representation of Gender in Garner's Politically Correct Bedtime Stories, a Critical Analytic Analysis. I will divide my presentation into 5 parts. First, I will present the background of the study. Second, I will show the research questions of our study. Third, I will briefly explain the analytical tool that we used. Then I will discuss the finding of this study and conclude my talk. Let's begin with the first one. One of the United Nations Sustainable Goals is to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. However, many studies which analyze children's stories found that unequal and traditional representations of female characters still dominate the stories. Despite that, we found that Garner wrote famous tales into his versions, which he labeled as politically correct. The book was first published in 1994 and has been translated into 20 languages. The book is humorous and consists of parodies, yet it provides new insight into the values that have been established in the society, one of which is on gender. Therefore, it was intriguing to find how Gardner deconstructed the portrayal of females in his fairy tales to be politically correct. We selected to analyze 2 fairy tales, Cinderella and Snow White, because the original story of the 2 fairy tales fit into the traditional female portrayals. In this study, we focused on the representations of gender in Garner's versions of the stories to uncover the ideology related to gender representations. The study was done by applying critical stylistic analysis as the analytical tool to evaluate the gender representations. The research questions that we have for this study are as follows. First, how is gender represented in the political correct versions of the 2 fairy tales? 2, what linguistic features are used in creating the representations? The study used Jeffries' critical analytics model. According to Jeffries, all text contains ideas with explicit or implicit ideologies which are exposed to linguistic choices of the text producers. The model has 10 categories, and as you can see on the slide. However, due to the limitation of space and time to conduct the study, the analysis focused on naming and describing. Naming and describing deal with the use of the noun phrases in the text, which also includes the use of adjective and post-modifying phrases and clauses, and nominalized verbs. The study is done by taking notes of the naming and describing of both the females and male characters in the 2 stories, then constructing the findings to find out the ideology and compare them with previous studies. Now, I would like to discuss the findings of the study. First, in his stories of Cinderella and Snow White, Garner reached his goal to be politically correct by contradicting stereotypes of traditional views. Regarding naming, it appears that Garner used pseudo-generics in both Cinderella and Snow White. For examples, in Cinderella, he changed godmother into godperson, and in Snow White, he used word person instead of huntsman. The pseudo-generics involve the eliminations of linguistic items that carry a masculine bias and replacing them with neutral items. So, Garner's use of pseudo-generics supported the view of feminist linguistics to promote gender neutrality to lessen the presence of sexism in language. Also, Garner used a generic term to address male and female, to address female characters. He used the words woman and women to talk about singular and plural form of a female. The terms of woman and women were what feminists in the 1970s used to replace the word woman and women in order to omit the appearance of man in the words. Second, Garner contradicted the concept of beauty and highlighted undesirable qualities of men to be politically correct. For examples, Cinderella and other females put away corsets, shoes, and every other confining garment. By putting away those attributes, Garner frees women from the idea that their beauty is defined by what they wear, and female can free themselves from the unrealistic standard of beauty. In other words, he contradicted the feminine beauty that usually dominates fairy tales. He also described the prince in the Snow White as impotent. The use of adjective impotent is to use to ridicule male's authority and create an impression of a failed, helpless, and powerless man who lacks strength. Usually stories highlight women's flaws of being weak, submissive, and dependent. So the subversive actions can reduce gender stereotyping related to gender and social roles. Third, Garner highlighted the visibility and empowerment of women. Garner put forward his political correct ideology concerning gender by dilating marriage as the happily ever after end of common fairy tales and changed it into a new and descriptions of Cinderella and Snow White by having their own businesses. So despite the brave and independent characters, we can notice that female characters in Disney adaptations of fairy tales finally get married to a prince. And there is also a belief that marriage is considered as one of the keys to highlight or to lift women's position in society. So Garner used a different way to make women visible and to highlight the empowerment of women. Thus, based on the names and descriptions used in Garner's stories, we can conclude that Garner has successfully constructed the stories of Cinderella and Snow White in such a way to challenge the stereotype representations and the hegemonic idols of males and females. As mentioned earlier, critical stylistic has many other tools. However, it's not possible to employ them all and present the result in one study that is restricted by time and in one paper that has word limits. So further study is recommended to use other tools to get insight whether or not Garner used similar techniques to challenge the hegemony of male and female ideals in his works. That's all for my presentation. Thank you.